Hey everyone, it's Applesauce and Baloney again, swinging in to bring you some information talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, been waiting so long for this Spider-Man.
Yes, we have.
Woohoo! Boy, okay, spoilers. Let's get all that out of the way. We're going to be talking about up to episode 5 and Hawkeye. A little bit referencing Spider-Man, but it's going to be Spider-Man. We're going to be J. Jonah Jameson
Spider-Man?
up
you
in
said
here.
Three Spider-Man? Spider-Man? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we, Kevin Feige is a dirty, dirty liar. There was
and Andrew
so
Garfield.
much Spider,
and Andrew
so
Garfield.
much, and Andrew Garfield,
and
dirty,
Charlie
dirty
Cox.
liars.
Yeah.
But no, we're referencing, like, you know, we all knew that we knew it. It was the biggest, worst kept secret, maybe in film history. Also, a historic box office opening, totally deserved. In my opinion, best Spider-Man movie ever made, and that's not just because we got all the Spider-Mans and all the Spider-Man villains, but that didn't hurt either.
Yeah, man, it what a ride.
Wow.
What a ride for a Spider-Man fan. I mean,
totally. Yeah, this was a Spider-Man fan's ultimate dream. It was his ultimate. I mean, and they knew it. I mean, they absolutely knew it. Pretty much every meme you saw on the internet of this movie better have this or we're gonna riot. It better have Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man. Check. Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland better be slightly weirded out by why Tobey Maguire's spider fluid just comes out of his wrists. Check.
Yeah.
You know, they knocked it out of the park. And in such a sweet, in the spirit of the original movies and in the spirit of, like, their love of the character, you know, you really got to see even old cool youth pastor Tobey Maguire still had it, man. He still had that spider juice, didn't he? It was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, it's
so
the
much
spider
fun.
juice is in his arms. I mean, it's in his blood, right? That's where the spider juice. No.
Does it come out? Does it come out of anywhere else or just your wrists? It was so great. I was dying. I was dying the whole movie.
Super fun movie. But you kind of hit on something that I wanted to talk about, and this is not necessarily about Spider-Man, so we're going to get to talking about Spider-Man because there's so many fun parts about this movie. I kind of want to talk about, like, spoilers and leaks and things like that, you know, because Marvel has a long history of hiding things from us. They've hidden stuff in trailers. They've showed us footage that was digitally altered. You know, Thor had 2 eyes in the trailer. There was the Hulk running during the Thanos battle. You know, they had this long history of hiding things. And Kevin Feige doing a real good job of trying to, you know, not let things get out there. But...
And managing expectation. Man, really, they listen to the fans. They don't kowtow to the fans. They don't bend over backwards. But, I mean, because this all felt...
But here's my problem.
It felt in-world. It felt earned. Okay.
But yeah, well, here's where I wanted to go with that, is that, don't spend all your time trying to dissuade the leaks. Leaks are gonna happen. You know, we got lucky with Baby Yoda with Star Wars, that nothing leaked, nothing was out there, and that was a fun, great reveal.
Maybe one of the last times ever that something is held that secret until it comes out.
But I mean, the internet pretty much knew that Matt Murdock was going to be in it. The internet pretty much knew that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were in the movie. We already knew that Doc Ock was returning. We already knew that you know, Goblin was returning and that Electro was returning. And they spent so much time trying to tell us that we were wrong that I think it ultimately hurt the movie for me, because, like, I was excited when they were there. I was excited for when they were there, but at the same time it was like, well, of course they're here. Like, so just, like, market the movie that you know that we want, and you do a really good job at it. But, like, once we had the leaked footage of Andrew Garfield, lean into it and say, yeah, Andrew Garfield's going to be in the movie. You don't know when. We're not going to put him in the trailer, but he's going to be in it. Be excited for it.
Because we don't know when. We don't know. We don't know for how long. I don't know. See, for me, I'm bummed that got in the way of enjoying it for you. Like, I have a different take on it. I like some of the mystery. I like there to be secrets and movie secrets. And I think a lot of See, where you were disappointed and it took you out of the movie, I was so like ecstatic that we weren't crazy and that the internet wasn't crazy. Because it would, for me, I would rather have seen Matt Murdock and Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock make an appearance as Matt Murdock. And you and I had talked about it like a day or two before we went and saw it. We're like, oh my God, how cool would it be if he shows up as Daredevil? No, probably he's just going to show up as Matt Murdock. But then at the the thing that broke the internet from Hawkeye last week was Wilson Fisk is in it. So, see, for me, like, you can only do what you can do in this day and age. And I guess we could Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, they could have done this or that. But I would just say, do what you can, kind of like, we did. Do what you can to avoid the spoilers.
Yeah.
If the spoilers come out.
But that's what I mean.
Well, but see, I think by denying it and being, oh, I don't know, but very finger by the nose, I don't know. I mean, like, they never came out and said he's not in this movie. Not in any serious
Andrew
way.
Garfield, during his press tours, was very much, I am not in this movie. I have not had discussions with Marvel. I'm just trying.
Well, good because see that made it so much better when he tears his mask off and there was. I mean, I haven't been in a movie in a long time where everyone in the theater applauded openly and cheered when Andrew Garfield took his mask off, and then we all knew it was only a matter of time before we got Tobey Maguire, and it really felt right. And man, we got it wasn't just. They weren't just cameos, and I thought that was better. There were actual scenes. Yeah. The villains, all the old Spider-Man villains played such an integral part to this Spider-Man's evolution as, like, now Tom Holland is a true Spider-Man. He's had his, I mean, and for them to really look it in the mirror and say, he's had his with great power comes great responsibility moment, and they did it in the third movie. So that kind of means he really hasn't been Spider-Man until the very end of this, and that makes me so excited. Like, see, the thing where I'm at with you on this stuff is the Tom Holland hype that this is it. He's done with Spider-Man, and that to me was the thing that seemed unnecessary. It's like, look, I'm already going to go see this movie. You don't have to fake me out because obviously after this we've got to get more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies because and what a cool way. I think one of the coolest things about this movie is and using the multiverse and using the Doctor Strange magic part of it, really gave him a chance to do a reboot. Like, it's Spider-Man. We get all the Spider-Man that we got from Civil War, the first two Spider-Man movies, and his involvement in Infinity War and the very end of Endgame when he comes back. But now we've got a whole new Spider-Man. He's sewn his own suit.
Who's not beholden to Tony Stark at all. I mean, he's his own character.
And no one knows. None of the other Avengers that he helped save the world with even know he exists.
Yeah.
Like, we're back to Ant-Man 2 level of knowledge of Spider-Man. Oh, there's a guy who crawls on walls. There's this guy. Which it totally allows them to, like, basically, like one of your favorite phrases, they get to write their own check with what they want to do with Spider-Man going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was kind of the thing that made me wonder about that, because, like, the spell was that no one would know Peter Parker, right? So are people still aware that...
No one even knows who Spider-Man is. I think he's an all-new hero.
Well, no, because J.J. Jameson is still saying, who is this Spider-Menace at the very end?
Who is this Spider-Man? Yeah.
So I think, to what extent do people still know who Spider-Man is? To what extent do they still know what
major edits. There's going to be major edits. It's like, okay, there was Spider-Man, but he had nothing to do with, Tony Stark, nothing to do with saving the world. Like, he was just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man this whole time.
Yeah, or what happens, again, based on the end credit sequence, what happens based on Multiverse of Madness? Because there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of repercussions to this whole multiverse idea that we've really only started dabbling in this year with the Spider-Man movie and with What If.
And am I wrong, or was that the single greatest post-credit scene / like a whole trailer? We got not just a teaser. We got a whole trailer for Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
A full trailer.
Yeah. No, that was
not a teaser,
cool.
Not just a quick scene where we're like, what? Not a quick scene where we're like, what's going on? Like, they fully went into Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, both end credit sequences were brilliant. I love how they're bringing Venom in. Will it be Tom Hardy going forward? I know he said that he wants to be a part of it, and he probably will be a part of it. But it doesn't
Yeah, I was
necessarily
going to
mean
ask
that he's
you.
Eddie
So
Brock.
what does that mean? Like, I mean, so at the end of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, they blip in to see Spider-Man, and then at the very end of that thing, he blips out, like he gets pulled in. But see, that's interesting. He gets pulled in by the spell, but his version of Venom has never heard of or met Spider-Man.
Well, so there's theories on that people think that at the end of Venom, when he says that he has a hive mind, there's people that think that there is a part of Venom that understands the greater multiverse universe. That he experiences things outside
so that
of...
Venom is part of every Venom. So Venom is part of every version of Venom that's ever existed and has a hive mind. So that Venom knows the Venom from Tobey Maguire's, like that he references the black goo.
That's and again, things change when movies happen, and they rewrite things, and things get fudged. Timelines get skewed. So who knows what'll actually come of it? But the fact that we're gonna get, that's probably gonna be the next movie we see with Tom Holland is probably his cross with Venom, because that's now out there. That's the tease that we get. Not to jump to the end of the movie, but going forward, that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see what they get, and I'd love for Tom Hardy to be a part of it, even if he's just a creative consultant or. But I think it's just as easy that Tom Hardy plays Eddie Brock in the Tom Holland universe, and that Venom goes out and finds Eddie Brock here. I also think it'd be really funny if he latches on to Flash Thompson.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was definitely wondering about that. But yeah, I mean, so many great moments in this movie. Really, I was to the point. I was getting so greedy that because this is what we would have been talking about. If they admitted to Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in it, then we all would have been like, "Well, are they going to bring in Miles Morales?" Because
they did. Miles exists in this universe.
Well, how do they refer? Where do they?
So not only is that the joke between Max, who's Electro, and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, where he says, "Well, I thought you'd be black."
Right. And he says, "I'm sure there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere."
So, Donald Glover's character from the original Spider-Man, he plays Aaron, and I forget his last name. He's the Prowler. So if you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, he's the Prowler. He is Miles' uncle.
Right. No, but
he calls Miles in that scene where he says, "Sorry, Miles, I'm gonna be late." So Miles Morales
you're referencing
in this universe.
Yeah, yes, you're referencing the first Spider-Man, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah,
that's not what I meant. I know that there was.
You wanted to see him in the suit.
So. What I thought was I was greedy because what I thought was going to happen once I got Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I thought for sure when the ripples were happening around the Statue of Liberty, I thought for sure we were going to get Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse, which was what I was trying to. That's where I was trying to get to.
Right.
With that.
Yeah. No. I get you.
I'm aware of the Donald Glover setup for the Tom Holland universe, but I mean I was so giddy and so high on having the three Spider-Men and having that thing that when Jamie Foxx's character, when Max says that I thought there'd be a black Spider-Man, I thought for sure there'd be, even if he just swung in and did one thing and then disappeared back into the blue stuff, that we were going to get to, if they just did the voice of the kid who did, Miles Morales and just had a CGI, Spider-Man suit, which they all were in certain scenes. Man, I was just,
that's a real rough road to go down, because then you gotta expect Spider-Ham to show up.
Sure, why not? But why not? It got so ridiculous. Well, I mean, and then we get, they're getting ready for, Howard the Duck. You could have had Nicolas Cage in black and white. Yeah. You could have had the anime girl in a robot. Yeah. Version of Spider-Man would have absolutely just could have been the same exact animation. So,
I'm glad they didn't, though. I'm glad they stuck with the three, because
from the movies, the cinematic Spider-Man.
Because we ultimately, I mean, we wrapped up all the Spider-Man movies. Tobey Maguire got to have his 4th movie. Andrew Garfield got to have his 3rd movie. Tom Holland got to have his 3rd movie, because all of their stories finally came full circle.
Well, right. I mean, they really got to wrap up all those villains in a really cool way. And now it's interesting because in those alternate universes, I mean, we're led to believe that all those guys go back, and Norman Osborn doesn't kill himself with the glider. You know, Doc Ock doesn't die sacrificing himself to save Peter Parker. You know, Electro doesn't die. The Lizard guy does. They don't all have to die, which sets up. Again, I was wondering. God, are we going to see? What do you think the chances are that this isn't just a one-off? That we then, they pull in kind of like they're doing in Into the Spider-Verse. If we will get to see more Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, because honestly, to take a page from Into the Spider-Verse, I thought for sure when Tobey Maguire Spider-Man gets stabbed by the Green Goblin, I thought he was going to die a la the OG, World 1 Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse that, starts Miles on his way.
Right.
So
yeah, I wondered about that too. No, it's a really interesting position for them to be in, because each of those characters got pulled from the moment of their death. So we're now sending a Doc Ock back to his moment of death, but he's now no longer a bad guy. So is there enough time in that moment for those characters to be like, oh, okay, we're going to stop. This isn't going to continue the way that it did.
Right. Well, I mean, and it might, because the Spider-Man might go back to that moment too. Like, those
were different moments, because that was obviously two Peter Parkers who have led their journeys on a much longer
afterwards,
road.
After the events of the movies. Yeah, you're right. Right.
But
you got to believe that those Spider-Men would pull back if all of a sudden the bad guy was whoa, wait, I'm fine. You got to believe that those, and which I loved the self-talk, especially the stuff with Andrew Garfield. It was very much they knew and they were aware of that he got shorted a movie in the whole transfer of rights.
Yeah. God,
and just the whole self-talk. You're amazing. You're amazing.
They did all 3 of them so much justice. Like
they really did.
Really, I was happy. Like that's. Like, getting to see them in this movie was like the 3rd or 4th point where I teared up in this movie, because God damn it, Marvel, stop making me cry.
It was so good. I mean, I know it pulled you out of it, and you were from them trying to say Matt Murdock wasn't in it. I loved that scene so much. And again, with the events of the end of the film, now see, Spider-Man knows something about Charlie Cox is Matt Murdock. Like, He knows something is up there. He's just in the middle of his own stuff, so he doesn't have really time to get into it. But now that he's been wiped from everybody's mind as Peter Parker, he kind of has an advantage, and I can absolutely see, like you and I have talked about, I don't know if we've done it on the show, but I definitely think that this proves our theory, seeing Wilson Fisk at the end of Hawkeye and then Matt Murdock plug in Spider-Man No Way Home. I think we have to see those two. I think Matt Murdock's going to come back in She-Hulk or.
Well, I mean, Hawkeye. He could definitely show up in a post-credit of Hawkeye, which would be great. I think he should totally show up. My thought for the post-credit of Hawkeye, where that's going, because eventually Maya has to go off and become this hero, would be, what if she goes after Kingpin at the end of Hawkeye, and Daredevil shows up to stop her and says, you're not ready, but I can help you. And then that leads into Echo, and we get Echo and Daredevil, the blind superhero and a deaf superhero.
It's definitely no coincidence that they dropped the tease of Wilson Fisk traversing the Netflix Marvel show to the MCU or Disney Plus television. Basically, the MCU. I think the Disney shows should be counted as MCU stuff because they're canon.
Yeah. Which really, at this point, anything Kevin Feige says, you should just imagine the reverse of, because 2 days before we get Wilson Fisk, is him saying, well, if and when Daredevil ever shows up, he'll be Charlie Cox. Well, okay.
But see, he didn't
we
lie.
We know
he didn't lie. If and when, and he
was
correct. Yeah. If and when he did show up, and he showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. So
he just Kevin Feige's a time traveler. He can't tell us until we're ready to know.
Right. Is he? Oh, wait. Get the dinger ready. Is he Kang?
Is he Kang? Yeah.
He's he who remains. He writes the timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he might be Kang. He might just very well be Kang. He's definitely he who remains after all the comings and goings and the people who've gotten these and even in the credit sequence, which because you have to sit through the whole credits at this movie. Lots of love to Avi Arad and the other people that really got this superhero thing going. A lot of love to the original Spider-Man movies because. It was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is kind of what's kicked off this modern Marvel moviedom. And that's all the way back in 2000. So here we are 22 years later. And,
really the modern superhero movies. I mean, we had the Batman movies and we had the Superman movies, but those were kind of secular to themselves. And it wasn't really until Spider-Man and then, if I'm not mistaken, X-Men after that.
Yeah.
That we really dove into what is modern comic book movies.
Right. And they really set the standard. But another great moment. Again, like you shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen the movie because I don't want to be responsible.
We've already ruined everything for you. So
yeah,
you're either
wanna,
mad at us at this point or
you're right along with us. But oh my God, the moment when he's like, hey guys, I'm not gonna brag, but I've worked on a team. I've worked with the Avengers and Tobey Maguire going, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the Avengers? That was so amazing.
Yeah. Who's
man, it was just me back then.
I fought an alien from space. Oh, really? I fought an alien in space. You guys have fought aliens?
Yeah. Man, I'm just like I'm not feeling so great about. Yeah, but it was just so great. Like in the moment with Aunt May, I got teared up.
Oh man, how
losing?
Dare
it was such a sad.
Yeah.
And I knew it was coming too, but I didn't know it was coming until it was too late, and then the anticipation of it made it even worse.
Yeah.
But I know,
and then they made you think it wasn't happening.
It was just,
and you caught your breath again.
Yeah.
And then it happened. And oh my God,
Yeah, it was rough, and I mean, and really, it all kind of coming full circle with what Tom Holland did say. Talking about the Spider-Man after this is going to be a different Spider-Man. He is now a little bit of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and a little bit of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Like it's like he told Zendaya how he felt, and he told his MJ how he felt, and they resolved that, and then now he's kind of doing the thing where he goes to the coffee shop at the end and decides not to tell her, and decides, which is such a Tobey Maguire Peter Parker thing to do. To keep her safe. That's basically because he's going to tell her.
But again,
and he sees the cut on her head.
Yeah.
He's going to tell her, and he sees the cut on her head, and that's when he stops. He's nervous about it, but he stops because he says, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I don't even remember what I did." And he's like, "You know what? I can't put you at risk." So he's already kind of breaking his promise to her that he would come and find her.
Again, though, Peter 2, who's our Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, if I'm following the movie math, he says that it's possible. He was able to go on and live a life with his Mary Jane.
They said they figured it out. Yeah, they do.
So somewhere down the future, there might be a world for Toby for Tom Holland Spider-Man and Zendaya's MJ. We'll see. It's to be seen, I guess.
Right, but there's no promises. And that's what I love about this is it's totally a reboot. We now the audience have known this whole Spider-Man, but the greater MCU at large, it just knows this Spider-Man. They don't know anything. And I love the putting on the OG suit and sewing it just like Tobey Maguire. And because he's always
with the right colors.
He's always had Tony Stark stuff. Yeah, he's always had Stark technology. He hasn't really been. I mean, other than like the very first time we see him when Tony goes to get him in Civil War,
he's wearing
or Homecoming, which is the flashback to Civil War. He's got his hoodie and his goggles, but we really don't see the real like early Spider-Man without the Iron Spider. Like he's sort of always the Stark Iron Spider-Man.
Right.
And how much did you love the purple hooded? I mean, this version of the Green Goblin, William Dafoe.
I mean, he was
is so amazing.
He was
so
kind
good.
of a crossover into what we get with the Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
Which is what people are starting to wonder, because in the comics, the Ned Leeds character is brainwashed by the Hobgoblin to think he's the Hobgoblin. So who knows what
Right.
happens to our Ned, if you know. And I mean, it's such a fun setup that he can use Doctor Strange's sling ring, and that he,
That was great. That
Kate
was such a
comes and
great.
saves him, and so
It
it'll-
was it was such a great, like, Sorcerer Supreme Ned was amazing.
Yeah, so I'm just
the fact
as
that Ned-
excited. Yeah, I'm just as excited to see where Ned's story goes now as I am for whatever this Peter Parker does.
Right, and if and again, it brings this whole new it brings a whole new dynamic to a character who's already had, this is his third movie, and yet we get to start totally over. I think that the potential for them to totally do a reboot on everything that we know about Spider-Man for the next one. I mean, again, we're looking 2-3 years out at this point. But the next time we do Spider-Man, I mean, the sky's the limit. They can really do whatever they want to do. We can, I mean, he could lose MJ and Ned and have a completely different adventure. They could move on. It could be all about him trying to get them back in his life, and that happening. Maybe he gets MJ back, but then Ned becomes a villain. I'd hate to see that, because I really loved the idea that Ned was then going to get, like, recruited in and be like Wong's apprentice or something, or Doctor Strange's magic guy.
Well, and again, it's all kind of contingent on what happens in the MCU going forward, because we don't know what's going to happen in Multiverse Madness. We don't know what's going to happen in Quantum Mania, because I'm assuming we won't get a Spider-Man movie now until probably 2025.
Yeah. But let's go into Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, skipping to that end thing. I mean, he goes to look for Wanda. He's not interested in Westview, and he's obviously. I do have some Doctor Strange questions that we should hit up. Before we wrap up. One is, when we first see him, he's not even wearing the holder of the Eye of Agamotto, but then later he's wearing the Eye of Agamotto, right? So are we already seeing, like, Doctor Strange? Are we going to have flashbacks to Spider-Man? Is he already involved in this Multiverse of Madness thing during Spider-Man?
I'm glad you caught that too, because I saw the same thing, because in the very first scene he's like, I don't have the Time Stone anymore. So I don't know if that's just regalia that he wears when he puts on his sorcerer outfit. But again, the Eye of Agamotto is kind of a useless trinket at this point if you don't have the Time Stone. At least that's what they've set up.
Right.
So could be.
So why would he have that? Well, and also, see, and I assumed at first, when I first saw it, I assumed that he got the injury because he's kind of messed up. Like, he's got a cut on his forehead.
Yeah.
When we see him again, and I assume that's from him capturing the lizard. Right. Because he captured the first couple, but is it? Is he? Because we see him. He kind of sends Peter on his way, and then I feel like we get a slightly different Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And in the trailer, I definitely think that we're seeing the evil Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange from What If. I mean, are we seeing that Doctor Strange?
That's
or a dark Doctor Strange?
I mean, it's definitely a dark Doctor Strange. Whether it's the dark Doctor Strange that we get from What If, but I mean, that was something that was fluttering around the internet as of Thursday at 4:00 in the afternoon, and people started seeing Spider-Man. Is that the word was that What If is now mandatory watch for Marvel going forward. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I have no arguments there.
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel like you and I talked about it during What If. They're doing some heavy lifting, and they're really preparing you for the idea of multiple universes. We got more Spider-Man than we bargained for, than we thought we were going to get out of Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, again, like we said, multiple scenes of Spider-Man arguing with himself, pointing at each other. Well, there's no reason they couldn't do that with other stuff.
And again, from the moment where we started breaking the multiverse, Marvel can, to quote DC, flashpoint us at any point at this point. Whenever they want to fix the multiverse, they can go back and just say, "Oh yeah, well, the Hawkeye show, that was a different multiverse. Oh, the Daredevil shows, that's a different multiverse. This is not the same Kingpin that you know from the Netflix shows. This is, everything that happened to Spider-Man in Far From Home didn't happen. However they want to spin it, and eventually we're going to come to a point where either the multiverse exists and all Marvel things are canon, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., do it, or nothing is canon, and they can do whatever they want to.
Right. I feel like there's a moment where it's completely possible, because of how they've done the multiverse and the setup, that we could get we can definitely have these different characters show up. The door is wide open for Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine in some way, shape, or form. Even and in a perfect way that's already set up to have to have him hand the torch to a younger Wolverine, like have him somehow be Logan from the far future, that comes in and is like, oh hey, young Wolverine, don't do what I did, or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, just so many exciting things to do with what if. Yeah. It's all tied together. You got to see it all. At this point, they're really making anything MCU must see. You got to see these shows.
And Tom Holland has expressed interest in being in the Spider-Verse. So at some point there could be a crossover where he does meet the animated Miles Morales and Spider-Ham.
Right.
And so who really knows at this point? These shows are so wonderful. They're doing such a great job at telling us so many different varied stories, and they can do really whatever they want, because like we keep saying, I want more of it. I got done watching Spider-Man.
Right.
I want another Spider-Man movie. I'm still J. Jonah Jameson. Bring me more Spider-Man. I want more.
Yeah, and maybe if they're out there listening, I'd love a Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends show.
Yes.
Do a live action where Tom Holland is kind of passing the torch on, or have other Spider-Men in there, and give us and who knows what them and Sony's plan is. They definitely they've set up the precedent for a Sinister Six movie. That was almost what this was. This movie was very much Spider-Man versus all of his greatest villains, his rogues gallery, and then Spider backup in there. I think that this Spider-Man is the best one that they've ever made. It stands on the shoulders of giants, Tobey Maguire's and Sam Raimi's early Spider-Man. But this one I'll be watching again and again and again the second I can get my grubby little streaming paws on it. So they left nothing for me. They left nothing on the table. I got everything I could have dreamed of, and more of it than I could have hoped for out of this Spider-Man movie. And I hope its success is well worth it, but it just trust Feige, man. Trust Kevin Feige going forward. They obviously have a plan. They're building up to some cool stuff. And if this is really I think the first of the Phase 4, Phase 5 movies. This is really the last,
right? Because really, Phase 4 got goofed up due to the pandemic. So really, we're supposed to be heavy into Phase 5, and this felt like a Phase 5 movie.
Yeah, this and Eternals are definitely our Phase 5 movies. Like, okay, this is where the MCU is going forward. This is what we're teasing. I'm a little sad because we have a long time before our next Marvel movie.
Yeah,
but
we do.
Book of Boba Fett's right around the corner. We've got that to talk about.
We got another episode of Hawkeye. We got one more episode of Hawkeye.
Yeah, one more episode of Hawkeye, and we are going to get together with my brother because I have beef with Netflix. I have beef, just like there's no beef on the Cowboy Bebop. They never have enough beef to eat with. I've got plenty of beef with Netflix canceling this show. It's starting to look like it's a real casualty of the sort of toxic fanboy thing. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into Hawkeye, and then we'll be talking Matrix and Book of Boba Fett right around the corner.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe here on Applesauce and Baloney. Give us a reason to live, or at least give us an excuse to give our significant others as to why we're taking time off to talk about Spider-Man for 3 hours.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.